Lord, dear Lord of love, God Almighty, God of love, please look down and see my people through. Okay. So, I need more.
More of yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
And I guess it's because I'm not near the monitor. Just
Do you want to go down there?
a tad. Huh?
Do you want to go down to him?
Yeah, as long as it's visually, it's okay. That would be. Like, even right here. Okay. My people through. It sounds very. This is part of it too, but. Lord, dear Lord of love. Some honey. A little something. Okay. I'm not going to look over there. I'm not going to. So, okay. So just. Oh my goodness. Robbie, we're going to have to leave it at that. I'll ask him to do something because he's on to Travis now. Yeah.
Did you say we have to leave? Did you say we're going to have to leave the stage for a while?
Yes.
Because I can't hear shit.
You can't hear anything? Did you hear better when I was there?
No, I'm saying when you talk to me off the mic, I have to come closer.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So, no. So also.
Camera, that's yours way over there.
Okay. And,
This is it. We got like 2 minutes. No,
We got 2
We have 0 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's 2 o'clock.
Okay. So if I stand a little bit on the other side of the flowers, that will still catch me, right?
I'd
No?
have to move it. Why, you
No,
don't
no,
want
no.
the
That's
flowers?
okay. That's okay.
Could you
No,
sit
no,
here?
no, that's okay. So where are we to sit? What happens with that as far as
Anywhere you like.
anywhere here?
You're up after what? About 10 minutes in?
10 minutes in?
15? I don't really know. Let
Okay.
me check the thing.
Okay.
You don't have to stay.
I have it in the back.
So you're going to start in time. So my part is the rubato issue.
Yes,
and
yes.
then I'll bring in the...
Na 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 na. Na.
na 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 da na 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 da na 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 na. In the end, good prevails. Can we say a prayer first? I need you to be all that you can be.
Good afternoon. Okay, little sleepy. Once more. Good afternoon. Much better. My name is Celine Peterson, and it is truly my honor to be here and welcome everybody to this celebration honoring Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutut on his 90th birthday. It gives me great pleasure to be your host this afternoon, and we'd like to thank Canon Peter Walker and Grace on the Hill for co-hosting this special occasion with the University of Toronto, South African Women for Women, and Zenzele Development Foundation. Before we begin this afternoon's tributes and performances, I would like to acknowledge that we are privileged to gather on this land here in Toronto, Canada. It is the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation. This territory was subject to an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy and the Ojibwe and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. I have to also apologize, this is very emotional for me, I didn't realize. He was the first Black Archbishop of Cape Town. He received the Nobel Peace Prize in 1984 for his efforts to end apartheid, played a key role in South Africa's transition from apartheid era by chairing the Truth and Reconciliation Commission at the direction of then-President Nelson Mandela. My father, Oscar Peterson, often talked to me about the struggles people in South Africa faced on a daily basis, and so gathering here today, honoring and celebrating the Arch and his steadfast dedication to justice, racial peace, reconciliation, and spirituality through the clergy is a sincere joy and privilege, and as I said, quite emotional. Ladies and gentlemen, the Canon Reverend Peter Walker has served as a priest of the Diocese of Toronto for 40 years, and currently he serves as the incumbent of Grace Church on the Hill, Toronto. Please welcome Canon Peter Walker and Church Warden Ms. Laurie Melbourne to deliver welcome remarks.
Thank you, Celine, and welcome everyone. I just want to say before I forget that I think I met Celine when she was about 3 years old. And I was preaching at a church in Mississauga, and her father and mother were there and introduced me to their beautiful 3-year-old daughter. So this is special. And this morning at Grace Church, we sang Hymn to Freedom by a certain Oscar Peterson. So that was very special. Welcome to everybody. This is a party. This isn't a church service. It's a party. And we've got entertainers today. We've got tributes, and we've got you to all take part in this party. And it's a wonderful event in the life of this city and the life of this church. We have many distinguished guests here today. I want to can't enumerate them all, but Archbishop Linda Nichols, the Primate of the Anglican Church of Canada, is here today, and it's so wonderful to have Archbishop Linda here today. Obviously, our guest speaker, the Reverend Professor Michael Battle from the General Theological Seminary in New York City, protege of Desmond Tutu and the author of a new spiritual biography. Michael, you were our preacher this morning, and it was awesome to have you here and just to welcome you to Grace. And I want to say none of this would have happened without the philanthropy, the vision of 2 parishioners of Grace Church, Mark and Betty Tullis, who a couple of years ago said to me they'd like to give a new window to this church. And we talked about what should be in the window, and Desmond Tutu was the first thing they said. We need not just a saint of the Anglican pantheon, but really a global figure, a global saint to inspire us for the way ahead. So I just want to tip my hat to the Tullises for beginning this process, and it's reverberating, and thank you so much. So welcome to Grace Church. Wonderful to have you here for this party, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm going to let our church warden, Lori, just say a word.
Good afternoon. My name's Lori Melbourne, and I'm a church warden here at Grace Church on the Hill. On behalf of the congregation at Grace Church, let me warmly welcome you to this place of grace for this special celebration of Archbishop Desmond Tutut's 90th birthday. An icon of democracy and an officer of society without racial divisions, Archbishop Desmond Tutut has worked tirelessly to foster racial equality, abolish political injustice, and create inclusivity through reconciliation. It's an honor to host this event in celebration of your birthday and our privilege as a church to welcome a wide variety of visitors to this occasion. We extend our gratitude to the guest speakers, the entertainers, and musicians who are contributing their talents to help us mark this birthday milestone. I speak for the whole congregation when I say Grace Church is delighted to be hosting this celebration for a man who literally changed the world for the better. We look forward to hearing him address us from Cape Town. Happy birthday.
Well, what a joy it is to be here together. And I have to say, it's a joy for me as someone beginning a career in ministry to do so each Sunday with a saint looking down on me, smiling at me, whatever mistakes I make Sunday to Sunday. So it really is great to have the Arch watching over us. In 1984, at his Nobel Peace Prize lecture, Desmond Tutu ended with these words: God wants us to be fellow workers with him so that we can extend his kingdom of shalom, of justice, of goodness, of compassion, of caring, of sharing, of laughter, joy, and reconciliation, so that the kingdoms of this world will become the kingdom of our God and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. Well, as we gather to celebrate one of the great fellow workers of God in our own time, let's begin with a prayer. Please pray with me. Gracious God, we give you thanks for the many fellow workers you have raised up in our time. And we give you thanks especially this day for Desmond Tutu, for his life and witness. We ask your blessing on him as he begins another year. And we ask that you would make us fellow workers also of your kingdom of justice, joy, and peace, so that your perfect reign would rule in our hearts and in our world, to the glory of your name. Amen.
Thank you, Canon Walker and Ms. Melbourne, and that was Reverend Micah Latimer Dennis, who was born in Cape Town, South Africa, and we thank you for your blessings. I'm reminded of the South African fallacy of Ubuntu, which means I am because you are. We are all connected and can only grow and progress through the growth and progression of others. Thank you to all the donors who have made the establishment of this bursary possible, and all who have contributed to the ambitious cause of keeping the legacy of Archbishop Desmond Tutu alive. The University of Toronto has established the Archbishop Desmond Tutu Bursary in Divinity Studies to a Master of Divinity student with financial need and who demonstrates an interest in causes related to humanitarianism, truth and reconciliation, or climate change. The first of these awards will be made in the upcoming academic year, 2021-2022, and I am delighted to invite Ms. Jillian Morrison, Assistant Vice President, University Development, to speak about the bursary and the importance of honoring Archbishop Desmond Tutu's legacy.
Thank you very much, Celine. It's wonderful to be here this afternoon on behalf of the University of Toronto. In 2000, some of you may know, the University of Toronto recognized Archbishop Desmond Tutut with an honorary Doctor of Laws degrees, celebrating his decades of humanitarianism, his determination in the face of systemic racism, and for giving voice to oppressed people of all backgrounds around the world. Today, of course, his visionary leadership continues to be, and profound commitment to justice continue to be admired by faculty and students and staff across U of T's 3 campuses. And the causes he has always championed, equality and truth and reconciliation, are as important and relevant to our staff, students, and faculty as ever. Indeed, with his lifelong service to the global community and his selfless dedication to global equity and understanding, Archbishop Tutut is an exemplar that we hope all of our students and our graduates strive in their own way to emulate. It was for this reason and many more that we were delighted when we were approached to partner together with the Archbishop's friends and supporters to establish the Archbishop Desmond Tutut Bursary in Divinity Studies at the University of Toronto. The award will be given to a student enrolled in a Master's of Divinity program at Trinity College, a student who has a demonstrated interest in causes close to the Archbishop's heart: humanitarianism, truth and reconciliation, or climate change. Because of the importance of this award and the high esteem in which the university holds the Archbishop, the university has pledged to match all donations made to the bursary, and we're very excited to see how successful the fundraising has already been. I would like to say a huge thank you to everyone who has supported the creation of the award, and it is my honor on behalf of everyone at University of Toronto to express our profound thanks to you, Archbishop Tutut, for all the work you have done and continue to do. The University of Toronto is enormously proud to count you among our most distinguished honorary graduates. I'd also like to say that we're extremely grateful to your dear friend Carol Adrians for giving her time and leadership so generously in spearheading the establishment of this award, and for allowing us to be a small part of your tremendous global legacy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Morrison. I can only imagine the lifelong impact that having this opportunity and this recognition and this help, especially in the name of the Arch, will have on the students. So this is quite spectacular. Tap dancer, performer, choreographer, speaker, and believer, Travis Knights is realizing his dreams, pounding rhythms on wood floors all over the world. His talent and dedication have earned him audiences in Shanghai, Dusseldorf, Paris, New York, and Vancouver, just to name a few. The Arch has always been joyous at events he attends by singing and dancing, whether it be in a church or at any other event. And if he were here with us today, no doubt he would join Travis tapping to love. And we are delighted to have Travis perform here today. Please welcome Travis Knights.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. It is an immense joy, an immense honor and privilege to be here today on such a wonderful occasion. All I have to offer, all I have to give today in honor of this occasion is the drum. This dance called tap. It starts after the Stono Rebellion in 1739. The powers that be took away the drums from those African people, and that ancestral rhythm was transferred and transformed into the feet. And so I'd like to offer this today as a way to reach back to a land far, far away, reach back to Africa.
Once more, just a little more love for Travis Knights, please. Sensational. Fatima Diki is a South African playwright and theater director. She is the first Black South African woman to have a play published. She is chair of the South African Women for Women chapter located in Cape Town, South Africa. And we are so delighted to have a pre-recorded birthday acknowledgement from her for the Arch. Fatima Diki.
Mine mnandi kuwe, mine mnandi kuwe, mine mnandi kuwe tata, mine mnandi kuwe. Happy birthday, our father. Happy birthday, our grandfather. Happy birthday, our living ancestor. God has bestowed a blessing of a long life on you. And so we are celebrating that long life with you. But then God has given you a second blessing in that you are not celebrating your long life alone, but you're celebrating your long life with your other blessing, Umama Ulia Tutu, your lifelong partner. And so, as we say happy birthday to you and may God give you a long life, we also say the same blessing to her. These greetings come from the South African Women for Women Western Cape sector. Dada, you have taught us two great lessons in this country. The first lesson was when you spoke out against the injustices of apartheid in this country. And you were not afraid that what will the church say? What will the people say about my church? But as an African who has an inborn culture of Ubuntu, you saw the injustice and felt it is time to put your voice in there. The second gift that you are going to leave us with is when you sat on the TRC and you led the TRC. It took a brave man. It took a man whose heart can forgive to sit and listen to people who worked for the government of the oppressors, telling you stories about how they killed, how they tortured. Those people were fighting for our freedom in this country. And so once again, you taught us the art of forgiveness. You will always remain in our hearts because of these two great lessons that you have taught us. uThixo akusikelele ayolule imihla yakho kwakhona angakuthathi ashiye umamuliya yedwa. May God bless you and may He make your days longer again, give you longer life, but not without your life partner umamuliya. Saying that, sihlwele sam lithi qamaku. By saying that, my living ancestor, I thank God for your presence in our lives. Thank you.
Diki. Archbishop Tutu's spirituality was deepened by the monks of the Community of the Resurrection, St. Benedict, the order which Brother Reginald Crenshaw represents, and teaches one about urbi et orbi, work and prayer, and this was pivotal to the life of the person whom we are celebrating today. I ask you now to please welcome Brother Reginald Crenshaw, a life-professed member of the Anglican Benedictine community and Order of the Holy Cross.
That's a relief. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be here to express my profound gratitude for the life of Archbishop Tutu on his 90th birthday. I begin with two short reflections from both James Baldwin and Audre Lorde. History is not the past, it is the present. We carry our history with us, we are our history. And when I desire to be powerful, to use my strength in the service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I am afraid. Archbishop Tutu, these two reflections describe both the public and private life you have lived these 90 years. In those 90 years, you have through your life shown us that the glory of God is a life lived abundantly. You have shared through teaching and action that each of us are born innately good. This belief led you to fight against apartheid, and it structured the reconciliation process in South Africa after the fall of apartheid. You have spoken boldly and advocated for human rights and racial reconciliation all over the world. You have placed your body where your vision is. You have freed us from living in a faith that makes us believe that we are born inherently evil and need atonement. You didn't do this alone, but with the help of the God who cherishes you, watches over you, and challenges you. I remember the first time that I met you, Bishop Browning and the other primates of the Caribbean and Canada invited you to moderate a gathering of bishops from Canada, the USA, and the Caribbean. The purpose of this meeting was to help bishops articulate their feelings around the issues of same-sex unions, ordination of gays, the holy orders, and a number of other issues, and to help the bishops primarily to talk to each other openly and honestly, despite their profound disagreements on how to address and resolve these issues. This meeting took place over a 2-day period at Holy Cross Monastery in New York. Your presence there helped to center the group. The questions you raised with the bishops, your active listening as each one spoke, your presence and acceptance of those present exhibited a new type of power at the meeting. It was the beginning of a new conversation, not resolution, but a new beginning. Your presence, quiet but contemplative, your words engaging and challenging, moved the bishops to a different place. For me, it was when I chose your book, Made for Goodness, for my parish adult group that was authored by you and your daughter, that enabled me and my parishioners to know you in a different way. There were two statements you made in the introduction that struck us. You said, first, we will see that we are all designed for goodness, and when we recognize that truth, it makes all the difference in the world. Second, we are perfectly loved with a love that requires nothing of us, so we can stop being good and live into the goodness that is our essence. We drank deeply at those two ideas, and as we moved through the book, as you and your daughter spoke of your experience, each of us reflected together on the experiences of our own lives. It was liberating. We began to see how we carry our history with us and realize how each of us was our own history. As you recall your experience of trauma, we entered into our own trauma, and as we journeyed with you and your daughter and ourselves, and we did it in such a way that we were able to begin the process of mending our own hearts and our own bodies. I salute you and thank you from those 6 women and 1 man. You showed us what the essence of holiness is, and that holiness belonged to all of us, and that finally we began to believe that each of us was holy. The ending prayer at the end of chapter 1 is my favorite and reflects what you and your daughter taught us. It is the prayer of God speaking to us. God says, I made you for myself, I wanted you, I made you like myself, I made you good, and I made you free. Listen and know that I am near. I am as close as a prayer. I am breathing in your breath. Will you breathe with me the breath of life? Will you claim the joy I have prepared for you? Will you seek me out and find me here? Will you breathe in my breath? Archbishop, this is your life that you have shared with all of us. Thank you. Happy birthday. Amen.
Thank you so much, Brother Reginald. And now it's time for some music. Ladies and gentlemen, let's please welcome Jackie Richardson, Canada's reigning queen of jazz, blues, and gospel, accompanied by Robbie Botos, Juno Award-winning Hungarian-Canadian jazz pianist, and the last protege of my father, jazz pianist Oscar Peterson. This is Jackie Richardson and Robbie Botos with Hymn to Freedom.
Robbie Botos. When every heart joins every heart, and together, yes, for liberty, that's when we'll be free. When every hand joins every hand, and together molds on destiny, that is when we will be free. Any hour, any day, the time soon will come when man will live in dignity. That is when
every woman, every child will live. Oh, and sing in harmony. That is when we'll be free. Oh, when every man joins in this song. Yeah, together. Let's sing in harmony. That's when we'll be free. That's when we'll be free. Oh, that is when we all. You talk about Ubuntu. Thank you, Archbishop. Thank you for sharing all those principles you've lived through life. We want to thank you. We're so glad, Robbie and I, to sing this song of hymn to freedom. You gave your life for all the fight for freedom. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. You've made the way, left your footprint. Oh, made it possible for the dream for us to be free. Happy birthday, and God bless you.
Jackie Richardson and Robbie Botosh. Yes, yes. See, and what happens is performances like that happen, and then I'm destroyed, and on a day when I'm already very emotionally on edge, so this should be interesting. But ladies and gentlemen, as we celebrate Archbishop Tutut's 90th birthday, what better way than to bring to light the inner landscape of Archbishop's spirituality, the mystical grounding that spurred his outward accomplishments, which often go unseen. It seems deeply fitting that the launch of Dr. Michael Battle's insightful biography about Archbishop Desmond Tutu should be the catalyst to bring us together at Grace Church on the Hill today. We are privileged and proud to host Reverend Michael Battle here this afternoon. I'm delighted to introduce to you Reverend Michael Battle, who will address the spirituality of the Arch and how it shaped his commitment to justice and reconciliation. Reverend Battle, please join me. Check 1, 2. Ah, haha.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P.
Uh-oh.
Now I've said my ABCs.
I don't think we can hear you.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. I'll speak louder. Speak louder.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here this afternoon. I feel like I'm very loud. One moment. My voice loud, not a great thing. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so happy to speak with you, and first, congratulations on the completion of this book. I have been reading it for the last 3 weeks. I'm still not finished. It's so much to take in, and there's a lot of self-exploration that I've found, since I've started reading the book, and I'd really be interested in hearing from you about, first and foremost, your journey with writing this book. What made you want to do it? How was it completing it? How long did it take you? Everything you'd like to share.
Thank you, Celine. And before I start, I also want to thank Carol Adrians for what she has done to make this happen for me. So thank you, Carol. I really feel as though the book came out of my experience with Tutu. When I was trying to make a decision on my PhD dissertation, I was going to write on a white British bishop. His name was Kenneth Kirk. And Kenneth Kirk is pretty cool. He had this ethic that you could only be ethical if you had a vision of God. And I thought that was nice. But then I had an epiphany that no one was taking Desmond Tutu seriously as a theologian. Most people saw him as a political agent. And Providence had it that he was on sabbatical at Emory University. I was at Duke University, and I was able to go down and meet with him at Emory. And when I walked through his door, the first thing he said was, "Let us pray." And when he said, "Let us pray," it opened the whole world to me that this was not simply academics, that this was about trying to show the world someone who naturally would go behind the scenes, who naturally showed the world who he really was. And I was able to live with Archbishop Tutu for 2 years. And the discovery that I had living with him is that he is even more powerful behind the scenes than he is in front of cameras and thousands of people. So I felt almost like a biblical writer trying to show the world a saint, a living saint.
It's interesting. We all have different definitions of who God might be to us. And I think everyone in this room, elements of our spirituality, it's all individual and it's all unique. And what has been one of the drawing forces for me to the Archbishop has always been the message of loving regardless of whatever that but might be for somebody else. And growing up as a highly privileged but mixed race woman here in Canada, I've struggled a lot with my place. And not ever having had the privilege of being in the presence of the Archbishop, I feel that so many people have a home with him, regardless of whether he's in front of you or whether you're watching him on TV or listening to him on the radio or reading something that he has said. And it has to be such a remarkable experience to actually have that one-on-one time with him and to see for yourself the products of his teachings and the products of his wisdom. I wonder if you could share a bit about that.
Sure. He is someone who is amphibious. He's an amphibian in the sense of living as a Black African, but also living as a Christian. And so What that means is he takes seriously his culture, his ethnicity, his particularity, but also living in this Christian identity that's actually healthy and not dysfunctional. He understands that those who are not of his particularity are just as important. And this amphibious nature got him in trouble because those in many of the black communities were angry with Tutu as being, from what they saw, as a sellout, as a tool of the white man. And then, of course, those on the side of power, those in that apartheid state, saw Tutu as a threat. So the beauty of Tutu's amphibious nature is that he really took seriously that the understanding of reconciliation does not mean a zero-sum game. That he really wanted those who were being oppressed to be free, but he also wanted those who were the oppressors to be exorcised of the demons so that they too could be free. And, that's something about Tutu. I think that is a genius, that he took seriously, the axiom of Martin Luther King, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And that represents both who we consider as enemies as well as those that we consider as friends. And so Tutu didn't think we could be free unless we all moved in that direction. And thank you, Jackie, for singing about that kind of freedom that Tutu was after.
Well, and that freedom, I think of one of the most significant elements of achieving that freedom is the finding within yourself the ability to forgive, which I struggle with. I, especially in the last 19 months, 20,000 years, however long this has been happening, that we've been living through this pandemic, I've struggled a lot with forgiveness, and I struggle with it when I attempt to keep up on the news and politics. I have the pleasure of being a dual Canadian and American citizen, so politics is an interesting one for me. But something every time I think of the Archbishop, and I am always remembering his quotes about the power to forgive, and it sticks with me. I try to practice it. Sometimes it's hard, but I try to practice it. And are there any conversations you've had with him specifically about forgiveness, i.e., help me?
Sure. Well, forgiveness is a part of what's called the rite of reconciliation. And when you understand reconciliation, you understand that you first must be contrite about something. Contrite is a word that really means to be aware of guilt, aware of brokenness. And from contrition, you confess it, you articulate it, and that's called confession. And then from confession to forgiveness, I believe forgiveness is before repentance, because forgiveness is something in which if you're simply aware of God's love, you are forgiven. And from forgiveness, repentance is about the movement toward God's will for the freedom of not just one people, but all people, and not just people, but creation. And then there's a last step that we often leave out of reconciliation, and that's reunion. And the reunion part is probably what's the sticking point for you, because reunion often is about unearned intimacy. People misinterpret reunion. You can't really be friends with someone that you are not in proximity with. You can't force intimacy. And you can't wake up one day and say, you're going to be my best friend. That has to be discovered. You discover who your best friends are. You discover through the loyalties, the histories that people have with you, being there at the right time. So you can't force reunion. You have to trust that. You have to give that to God. But forgiveness is wrapped up in all of that. And the problem with Christians is we often have cheap grace. And we try to force an intimacy that is not there. So, for example, in Charleston, when Dylan Storm Roof killed a Bible study, the Charleston civil service people were trying to force those who had been murdered to talk about forgiveness. This is like the day after. And that's not true forgiveness. True forgiveness is understanding the tragedy, mourning, going through the stages of anger. And as you move through those rites of reconciliation, we can discover forgiveness. We discover it when we make ourselves available to God's love. And so Tutu has become famous for forgiveness, especially his book, No Future Without Forgiveness. But we have to get out of a superficial Walmart kind of forgiveness and move toward a deeper understanding.
Thank you. Thank you. Last night, I had the pleasure of sitting down for dinner with you, and we were talking about legacy. And I expressed that something I struggle with for what is now almost 14 years since my dad passed is posthumous acknowledgement of his legacy, which is going to happen regardless. There's always going to be something with public figures whom we adore. There are always going to be tributes. Not everything is going to happen in their lifetime. But I have a hard time with the fact that there are some wonderful things that I know would really humble my dad and make him so proud that I wish he could have seen and been here for. And the same goes for other people in my life whom I love, my godfather, my aunt. There are so many people. And that's why I think it's so special and important that we're sitting here today celebrating Archbishop Tutu while he's still with us. And it's that the notion of legacy, it's such a daunting word. It's such a big word. And in thinking about how Archbishop Tutu's legacy would be celebrated and should be celebrated while he's still with us, you think back to the fact that he is somewhat of a controversial figure in certain circles. And so I know that part of your journey is introducing people to his work and his teachings. And I'd love to hear from you a bit about the importance of strengthening his legacy while he's with us.
Sure, and we had a lovely dinner, and I remember saying back to you, usually those who are the extraordinary souls among us, we don't recognize until they die. Like Picasso, his works become valuable after he dies. And I would imagine you living with your father, he didn't have the respect that he should have had as a living figure. But thanks be to God, he's gaining it now. I think for Tutu's legacy, it's the same. He carries with him the complexities of the continuum of retributive justice and restorative justice, those who want more justice understood as a zero-sum game, or justice that's somehow thinking it can match the proportion of the crimes. But we all know, how do you match the crime of being raped? And how do you proportionately bring justice to the affliction of slavery or the removal of land? How? I don't know how human beings can do that, because that's an affliction that nobody can give any fair reparation. It doesn't mean reparation should not occur, but it means that we have to move beyond this sense of only retribution and look more at restoration. And that's going to be his legacy. His legacy is going to be moving the pendulum from justice understood as retribution towards justice understood as restoration. And I think his legacy will also be what we talked about in terms of forgiveness, his ability to say the word forgive without cheap grace. I think his legacy is also going to be, especially for Christians, moving out of a provincial worldview that Christians are the only ones with spiritual answers. His friendship with His Holiness the Dalai Lama is showing that in Tutut's later years, in his sage years, his friendship with the Dalai Lama is almost the embodiment of his worldview. That we must be open to those who are different from us, not just on ethnicity, culture, socioeconomic status, but religiously. That's going to be a legacy that he brings, as well as, lastly, I think, for much of our history, Christianity has looked very bad. The churches have been on the wrong side of history for a lot of issues. Our leadership has looked like the Three Stooges in many ways, in the ways that our history has shown popes in bad light, so much of a bad light that HBO makes a lot of money off of a pope's life. Tutu, his legacy is going to be, hey, here's someone who's on the right side of history. Here is a church leader that shows a good kind of politics. Here is a church leader who can make you laugh. His legacy is going to be, here is one of the glimpses of how Christianity can be a part of the solution. And hopefully he will be contagious for future church leaders to be parts of the solution instead of exacerbating the problem.
I want to end on the topic of gifts and lessons, and I very much believe that when you're given a gift, it's the real product of that gift is what we do with it, and that is true in any scenario. And I think that what you've done with the gifts that the Archbishop has given you, whether it's in his time or his teachings or anything that personal in the relationship between the two of you, shows itself in your writings and your teachings and everything that you've said and shared with us today. But I'm wondering if there's a specific gift or lesson that you got from the Archbishop that you'd like to share with us.
Yeah, I think it's embedded in this story that I love to tell. It was a kindergarten class, and the assignment the teacher gave was to draw something beautiful. And the teacher noticed one student in particular, little Susan, drawing something in a very enthusiastic way. And the teacher went over and asked, Susan, what did you decide to draw? And Susan said, I am drawing God. And the teacher said, being theologically correct, Susan, you can't do that because nobody knows what God looks like. And without skipping a beat, little Susan looked at her teacher and said, "They will in a minute." I think that story represents, for me, my relationship of living with Archbishop Tutu. An existential vision of God. And it's not that I'm a sycophant, a groupie. It's that there are rare occasions when you encounter a life that has just as much integrity in private as you have in public. I remember Archbishop Tutu, and if you're going to live with him, you've got to pray with him. And this was a early morning, during morning prayer, and someone came and whispered in his ear, and then all of a sudden he motioned to me that I had to come with him, because I served de facto as a chaplain for a period of time, and I drove him around on the wrong side of the road, by the way. He really has a lot of faith in God to let me drive around.
I'll keep that in mind.
And as we were driving, we just left morning prayer, and we didn't finish. He took up where he left off in morning prayer in the back seat. And he was saying the liturgy, expecting me to reply almost as if we were still in the chapel. And I understood from his life of prayer, praying about 7 times a day, his life of being formed by monks. And I always joke with my kids, when they joke with me, they say I'm trying to make Tutu into Batman or a superhero, usually who are trained by monks. But I understood from Tutu that he believes in God. And that's hard to do, isn't it? And to encounter someone with that kind of faith changes your life. And I think as we think about his legacy, as we honor his birthday, I think the best thing that he offers us is to help us say our prayers, and to know that saying our prayers every day is one of the hardest things to do. And so, happy birthday, Arch, and I'm going to see him in a week's time. His actual birthday is on October 7th, so I'll be flying to Cape Town. Hopefully they won't give me as many troubles as I had coming here to Toronto.
Oops.
But Archbishop Tutu deserves this attention that we are giving him. And I hope that you will get to know more about Archbishop Tutu while he's still alive.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Reverend Michael Battle. Desmond Tutu, The Spiritual Biography of a South African Confessor by Reverend Michael Battle. It so beautifully captures the service leadership of the Arch that centers on the intersecting values of respect, integrity, forgiveness, compassion, reconciliation, and Ubuntu, which is one of the important reasons why Michael's spiritual biography should be read. And we have books on site available to you today, so I certainly hope that you will take one home with you. Archbishop Emeritus Tutu appears alongside the Reverend Dr. Florence Lee Tim Oy in a glorious new stained glass window in Grace Church on the Hill here in Toronto. The church's goal in adding this window to its edifice was to commemorate modern-day saints of the Anglican Communion, people whose spiritual journeys resonate for people today. This project was planned before the pandemic started but its installation during this tragic year of upheaval and grief became a touchstone of hope for the parish and the wider community, a visible sign of God's love and constancy. It's my pleasure to invite Mrs. Betty Tulis and Mr. Lorik Alban Bakimoto to provide us with further comment about the window.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. I was asked to say a few words about the stained glass window and how it came to be, and if you haven't seen it yet, it's up here. You can't see it from there very easily, but if you come up after the program is over, please come up and take a good look at it. As Celine said, we started this process long before the pandemic started, and though the winds of discontent were certainly swirling then, what we wanted to do was to create a window that showed God working in the lives of people today or in recent history. We wanted to show Anglicans with some sort of connection to Canada. Desmond Tutut and Lee Tim Oy came immediately to mind. The design was commissioned and ordered a good 2 years ago. When one comes to a place called Grace, it seems natural to think that perhaps it was the grace of God that led our steps in this direction. With its installation last year and dedication almost exactly a year ago, the timing could not have been better, a window of hope during a very bleak time. Before I close, I want to mention that the window is dedicated to Canon Peter and Ginny Walker for their ministry of hospitality, so evident both in this parish and in the wider community. And on behalf of everybody at Grace Church, happy birthday, Desmond Tutut.
Archbishop Emeritus, university faculty, and everyone joining us in person or virtually from around the corner or around the world. I'm humbled to play a small role in this 90th birthday celebration. As a toddler, waving enthusiastically at Archbishop Tutut from my mom's red Mazda at Cape Town Airport, I never dreamed that I'd be here 26 years later paying tribute to the Archbishop's bravery, which is immortalized in this stained glass window. Now, those familiar with Grace will know that many of our windows are dedicated to the bravery of young Torontonians who answered the call of freedom at great personal cost. The new Tutut window continues our building's tradition of honoring bravery and indeed the ongoing fight for freedom. I'll never forget playing tour guide to a foreign client who had come to Cape Town to attend a conference that my employer was hosting. Before dinner, the client and I toured the crypt of the iconic St. George's Cathedral, where numerous photographs displayed the Archbishop's activism under apartheid. The confused client asked me if Parliament was across the street, and I nodded. The client then told me that the Arch must have been brave, so I asked him why. Well, the client said, if you're going to denounce a brutal regime from across the street, you're either brave or plain insane. We can all agree that the Archbishop is the former. He continues to show bravery in his day-to-day activism and is and will continue to be an inspiration to future visitors to our building. And now, happy birthday, Arch.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Tulis and Mr. Bakimoto. This is a true inspiration. We're so lucky to be able to admire the window for years to come. And now the short video that you're about to see showcases the tremendous work of the Arch and Mama Lea's official foundation in Cape Town under the overall theme, Courage to Heal. We hope that you will all support this tremendous legacy work of a remarkable person who has brought hope and light to the world in a way that few other people have. Please enjoy the video.
The Desmond and Leah Tutut Legacy Foundation has its home in Cape Town, South Africa. For many years, Desmond Tutu has stood on the side of those who suffer, and he has suffered much, but has always believed that evil will never have the last word, that not even a virus can separate us from each other, that we ought to continue to speak truth to power, and that forgiveness is more powerful than revenge. This year, as he turns 90 years old, his official foundation has launched the 90 at 90 campaign to ensure that his work, wisdom, and legacy are sustained. The campaign aims to raise 90 million rand, or at least $6 million US.
We thank our Creator for Desmond Tutu's insights, for his life and witness, and thank you for honoring it in this way.
I'm heartened by the Arch and by his continued resolve to lead by example through his foundation and through the newly unveiled Tutu Legacy Fund. He's inspired us all. He's given his all in pursuit of this inspiring mission.
His message and his voice still ring clear after all these years. After everything, he remains joyful and hopeful. As he turns 90, the time has come to hand over this rich legacy over to you who give us hope, such as Ingam Fundisi, Andrea Vaderman, Kurt Hartley, Ayaka Melitafa, and Akona Toyeka.
I pay tribute to you, Dada. Your legacy will live on through each and every one of us. As part of the youth of South Africa, I'm proud of the struggles that you have fought for this and many other nations.
Be assured that we will take the baton you have given us and run with it.
We love you and we thank you for serving as a beacon of hope and an inspiration to many.
They work for climate justice and equality. They work for women's equality. They are showing the way. Now is the time for global justice. Now is the time for an Ubuntu that includes all. Kinako, the time has come. Will you support the 90 at 90 Tutu Legacy campaign?
I am because you are. My success and my failures are bound up in yours.
There is a gap between umbilical severing and the time the rhythm in our chest stops beating. This gap represents stories, chronicles of our work here on earth. The question is, to what kind of stories are we giving birth? Wednesday, October 7, 1931, Klerksdorp, Transvaal, South Africa. Aletta and Zachariah gave birth to a son, one destined to shine as bright as the sun. He knew struggles, sold peanuts to help his family. He did his schoolwork by candlelight, survived TB, the boy had to fight. Like his father, he became a teacher. For him, Father Trevor Huddleston was a great inspiration. He became the first black Anglican Archbishop of Cape Town and Johannesburg, a voice for the voiceless. Have you heard? An outstanding, outspoken critic of apartheid, appointed by Madiba to chair the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, a man on a mission, a proud South African, Ubuntu. Today we clap hands in celebration of the birth of a great man, a teacher, preacher, speaker, change maker, a people lover with a great sense of humor. I speak of none other than Desmond Impilo Tutu. Happy 90th birthday to you who epitomize the principles of Ubuntu. I am because we are. I am because we are. I am because we have come a long, long way. Testimonies of painful memories, bloody nights, bloody days, apartheid, apart ways. Black people were forcibly removed from their homes and deposited into Bantustans, thrown into poverty and tribulation. Segregation was their development plan. How this man? Fathers slaughtered, daughters raped, sons kidnapped, no chance of escape, tortured, shocked, drowned. Black skin was seen as a sin, too much melanin. There was no dignity for the black family. There was no dignity for the black family. Still we hold no bitterness towards them. We do not seek retribution. Give us truth and reconciliation. As you so graciously said, God made us all. God forgives us all. Forgiving is not you being nice to the other guy. Forgiving is you being good to yourself. Forgiving is good for your health. After all, we are humans only through relationships. You see, we are made for interdependency. I need you to be you to the fullest. I need you to be me, because a person is a person through other persons. How else do I learn to walk? How else do I learn to talk? We all need equal access to education, rights, and justice, and that is Ubuntu, Ubuntu, Ubuntu. As you said, there is no true peace, no true security that ever came from the barrel of a gun. As sure as anything, someone will retaliate. Without truth and reconciliation, no one says let bygones be bygones. We all have a deep, deep longing for peace and harmony, not just as human beings, but with animals and the trees. The environment is on its knees, crying out for our love and care as climate conditions get worse year after year. Shorelines disappear, pollutants contaminate the air. Do we really care? Do we really care? You see, we all know that wrong is wrong. You and I were made in the likeness of God. We were made for good. God wants us to know that we're no chickens. We are eagles, made to soar, made to fly. So fly, eagle, fly, in the spirit of Ubuntu. Happy 90th birthday, Desmond Tutu. I am because you are. I am because we are. Keep shining, brilliant star.
That was the unbelievable talent and creative work of Randy Mack. Randy is an international award-winning dub poet, creative activist, social entrepreneur, and Commonwealth Youth Awardee. And he is a former youth ambassador from the One Love Island of Jamaica. So thank you very much, Randy. And of course, I would like to also remind you that, as Michael and I discussed earlier, honoring the legacy of Archbishop Tutu is of the most paramount importance, and the work of the Desmond and Leah Tutu Foundation is doing just that. So I invite you to visit their website to learn more about the work that they're doing. I'd now like to invite the Most Reverend Linda Nichols, Archbishop and Primate for the Anglican Church, to deliver closing remarks.
Thank you for the invitation to be here today and to have heard such moving and wonderful testimonies to you, Archbishop Desmond Tutu. During my entire ministry in the church, you have been an Episcopal leader as a bishop and an archbishop. As the cries to end apartheid grew stronger and stronger, your voice rang out for justice and equity through the lens of the love of God known in Jesus Christ. It is a voice you have continued to raise, proclaiming the limitless love of God for all God's rainbow people. Like the story of Susan that Michael Battle just told. Many years ago, I heard the story of a child being asked to describe a saint. The child turned and pointed to a stained glass window nearby and said, "Well, it is someone the light shines through." An apt description indeed. And we have certainly heard you, Archbishop, described as a saint today. For you are certainly someone the light of God shines through. Christians, and maybe Anglicans in particular, are sometimes perceived to be dour, sober, and not much fun. But you exude joy and a love of life given by God to all creation. That is particularly remarkable given the pain and violence of the struggle for freedom that you must have experienced and seen. And you never turned that back. You led the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa, which became an inspiration and a model for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission here in Canada in our ongoing journey with Indigenous peoples. You have been our inspiration. You have heard and seen and experienced the depth of human capacity for evil and harm, yet you continue to show the face of hope and joy, believing in the goodness of humankind created in the image of God. If we are seeking a mentor or icon of Christian life, I can think of no one better than Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And so, with deep gratitude to you for 90 years of life and ministry, for your continued witness to the gospel in humility and grace, may you be an example to all people, to all Christians, to Anglicans in particular, and to the future recipients of the bursary named in your honor this day. And may God's strength and courage that have sustained you in this long, long journey, this battle, this celebration, this joyful living of the good news of Christ day by day, may that strength and courage continue to fill you in the years to come. May God bless you this day and always. Amen.
Thank you so much, Reverend Nichols. I'd now like to invite the Reverend Dr. Christopher C. Britton, Dean of Divinity, and Margaret E. Fleck, Chair in Anglican Studies at Trinity College, to join me on stage and introduce to you the first recipient of the brand new Archbishop Desmond Tutu Bursary in Divinity Studies at the University of Toronto, and they will read a message from the Archbishop. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone.
I am delighted to be here today, but I'm even more delighted that Trinity College has been given this gift of honoring one of our students every year in the Archbishop Tutut's name, a student who exhibits the passion for justice, for reconciliation, and for creation care. And as someone who's had students read Desmond Tutu since I began teaching theology, particularly in courses like Justice and Reconciliation, it's a particular honor for me. And so on behalf of the staff, administration, and students of Trinity College, I thank all those who have made this generous donation possible. We have our first winner this year. After considering a number of very interesting and promising candidates, we were very impressed by this year's winner's long history of commitment to issues like anti-poverty work among marginalized men and women, prison ministry, and in the classroom now, her passion for issues around justice, reconciliation, and also the environment. So I'm pleased to introduce you to the 2021 winner of the Archbishop Desmond Tutu Scholarship, Paige Suter.
It is a deep honor and a blessing to be able to share with you the words of the Archbishop. Dear friends, I am truly bowled over with the wonderful news of the establishment of the Desmond Tutu Bursary in Divinity Studies at Trinity College at the University of Toronto. It is an immense pleasure to see my friends come together to give and to create something that will benefit young people. It is a generous act, and I am truly and deeply touched by it. To every donor who supported the bursary, I want to say in the spirit of Ubuntu, not only have you embraced our future generation with this educational gift, but you have also collectively taken action to give students hope and courage to effect change holistically. Leah and I are very grateful for our friends in Canada, and remember fondly how warmly we were received on every visit we made. We would have loved to be in attendance to celebrate with you my 90th birthday. God bless all of you. Archbishop Desmond Tutu.
As we near the end of this lovely and deeply special afternoon, I am now pleased to present to you the multifaceted vocalists of the Nathaniel Dett Chorale, Canada's first choral group dedicated to the Afrocentric music of all styles, including classical, spiritual, gospel, jazz, folk, and blues, founded and directed by Brainerd Blyden Taylor. Please welcome the Nathaniel Dett Chorale.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and particularly to be celebrating this wonderful milestone of Archbishop Tutu. Archbishop, we remember so very fondly performing at your convocation at University of Toronto and singing one of the pieces of Nathaniel Dett. And as you began to walk down the aisle at Hart House at U of T, the soprano soloist was singing, "He shall feed his flock like a shepherd and carry the young lambs in his bosom." It is something that you have done remarkably for your people and for all of us. And this evening we'd like to offer two songs that we feel embody who you are and what you're all about. The first song that we'd like to offer is "I Dream a World," the text of Langston Hughes. I dream a world where one no other will scorn, where love will bless the earth and peace its paths adorn. I dream a world where all will know sweet freedom's way, where greed no longer saps the soul, nor avarice blights our day. I dream a world where black or white, whatever race you be, will share the bounties of the earth, and everyone is free. Where wretchedness will hang its head, and joy like a pearl attend the needs of all of humankind. Of such I dream our world. And the second piece that we'd like to offer is a setting of This Little Light of Mine, I'm Gonna Let It Shine. Something you have done so remarkably all your life, and something that you call us all to do in our own right, in our own way. Happy birthday, Archbishop Tutu.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Nathaniel Det Chorale under the leadership of Braden Blyden Taylor. And this brings us to the end of this afternoon's events. I'd like to thank you so much for joining us in this celebration of Archbishop Desmond Tutu's 90th birthday and the establishment of the Desmond Tutu Master of Divinity Bursary that has been established in his honor. And on that note, it would be remiss of me to not mention the woman who is responsible not only for spearheading the establishment of that bursary, but for bringing us here today. Thank you, Carol Adrians, for organizing this event. I'd like to invite you now to join us in Parish Hall for some refreshments. Thank you for coming. Please stay safe and stay healthy.